Now this problem, this one's an example, more like an exam problem, where the questions that follow all relate to the same scenario. A copy of this scenario is in Canvas. It's basically in the topic 5 materials. So you can go back to it and have a look at it, or I can flick back to it if you need me to. So take a minute to read the scenario. I assume you can see it on your phone. Actually, no, I'm using my phone to record to make sure that there's good recording. So I can't actually look at it myself. Oh, unless I open it here. Might just try it. Okay. Is that little heart thing available for you to just tell me that when you're ready to read? Can't remember if that's something I put in or not. Okay, or just give me a little thumbs up or a reaction of some sort when you're ready for me to move on to a question. High 51862. All right, are we ready? Okay, I saw Marius's thumbs up there. Ready, ready, ready. Oh, no heart this time around. What do you know? Okay, let's go. Let's see what the questions are. Was the contract between Timbertop and Ace legally binding? Yes, they were both happy. No, they couldn't finish the work. Yes, consideration was given in the form of a promise to build cubby houses. No, the price was underquoted, so the consideration wasn't adequate. Waiting, waiting, waiting. Oh, I see, this one isn't timed. Clearly I need to learn how to use the software. So, most of you completely understand what's going on here, moving around. So, both parties being happy with the agreement isn't enough to get us a contract. It demonstrates that there was intention, but it's probably not enough to get us a contract. And so that other statement, consideration given in the form of a promise to build the cubby house in return for a promise to pay $20,000, demonstrates that we have agreement, there's a bargain, there's a detriment and a benefit, and there's consideration moving from both sides. So that is the better answer of the two. Okay, let's keep moving on. Just sing out if you've got questions. So what was the agreed price for Timbertop Nurseries promise? Delivery of the cubby houses, completion of the contract, signing of the contract, or payment of $10,000. Oh, even-ish. So clearly I've set this one up in a different way. Anyway, we'll get there. had a chance to have a go. Oh, got a bit of a extra radical bit of difference in there. Somebody hedging their bets. Okay, so let's have a chat about this. What was Timbertop Nurseries' promise? What did they promise?
To pay $20,000 and then subsequently to pay an extra $10,000.
Yeah, so there's two promises that we can identify that they may have made or that they have made. One is to pay $20,000 and the other one is to pay an extra $10,000. Whether or not that's an enforceable promise is likely to be what some of these questions relate to. So the payment of $10,000 was never, that's something that they might have done, but it wasn't ever a price for their promise. Their promise is to pay an amount of money. Signing the contract is evidence that agreement has been reached, but it is not itself a price for a promise. It's not consideration. And completing the contract or delivery of the cubby houses may in fact mean something very similar. I personally think the delivery of the cubby house is a more precise way of answering the question in that circumstance, because the promise, pay $20,000 in exchange for a promise, get some cubby houses built. So completing the contract, it's a little vague. Completing the contract is usually would mean everybody has done everything that they need to do. So that would mean they paying their $20,000 as well, which is clearly not part of the price for paying $20,000. So again, that's a language thing, but otherwise fine. Sorry?
So just to clarify, is the delivery of the cubby houses is actually the AC's promise?
Yes. The Cubby House Company has promised to deliver however many cubby houses.
Yeah.
And Timbertop has promised to pay $20,000. Cool.
Yeah, so on the slide before it said what was Timbertop's promise, which I think it was easy to interpret as what did
I'll go back. Sorry. What was the agreed price for Timbertop Nurseries' promise? So you need to then say, so what's the, and it's a confusing question, but what I'm really trying to do is pull out, are you understanding the language in the cases here? So, would it have made any difference to the enforceability of the contract if the parties agreed that Timbertop would only pay $1 for the cubbies? You can see each other as you answer today. So only 9 of you brave enough to put an answer in. You do realise this is completely anonymous. I have no idea what anybody puts in other than if you tell me. So yeah, we're moving up. People are getting brave. So what's the rule here? What rule am I asking you about? Consideration must be legally sufficient, but it doesn't need to be adequate. And for that reason, it wouldn't make any difference at all to the enforceability of the contract if Timbertop had agreed to, if Ace Cubbies had agreed to build those cubby houses for $1 or for a pair of smelly shoes or a peppercorn or $5 each or $2 million each. The law won't inquire into whether or not the price is an appropriate price. It just needs to see that there is legally sufficient consideration. So that goes to, is it bargained for? Is it real consideration, or is it past consideration? By the way, I hate the term past consideration because it implies that it's consideration when it's not. I find that it's an unfortunate term, but it's in the cases quite a lot. Okay, would it have made any difference if the developer had offered to pay $10,000 to Ace Cubbies? Couple of different options here. No, because consideration needs to move from the promisee, and Timbertop is the promisee. Yes, it would be fresh consideration for a new contract. No, even if additional money was fresh consideration, the promise to build the Cubbies was an existing legal duty. Trick question, difference to what? I'm actually wondering whether I've allowed what I've allowed to be a correct answer in this one. I'm going to hit the button to have a look. So even if the additional money was fresh consideration, a promise to build the Cubbies is an existing legal duty. So it, again, probably a good case to think about here would be woolen mills. That there's already, actually woolen mills is not, because woolen mills is an example where there was no bargain at all. That because there is this obligation to build the Cubbies for someone else, a bit like Glenmorgan Coal maybe, where you already have a duty to offer police services. So if all you're doing is still offering police services, it doesn't matter who or what this additional amount of money, what that additional promise is. It's just you have that duty to do that thing anyway. I guess we could distinguish, so the Pumachan and Temple case, where if the promise to do something was to a third party, then we have the fraud. But in that case, it was a promise to reduce a debt. So it was making some kind of change, where this is just a promise to pay, like a promise to do the thing without any variation. Yeah.
That question, could you say that the case in Hong Kong with the...
Oh, yeah, food chip.
Yeah, would that, because in my notes, anyway, it says a promise to perform an act which the promisor is under an existing duty to a third party to perform may constitute good consideration.
But there needs to be something else added. So in food chip, what happened is you're adding in, well, there are a whole lot of things happening in food chip. It's a very confusing case.
So it's not as basic as just that thing.
It's not, and so what's happened, in that case, it became a new contract. We would need something else as well before we seek to have a problem. But that's an excellent observation, actually. I was trying to think, there is a case that's closer to this, and food chip is clearly the one, or Pao Long On, I think it is, and food chip. Very confusing case indeed. Okay, true or false? Ace Cubbies provided consideration to Timbertop Nurseries for the payment of $30,000. Okay, lesson to self, when I sort these things out next time, I'm going to hide it so you can't see each other's answers when you before you submit. I need to...
We can't see the answers anyway.
Oh, can't you? Oh, you could if you were looking at the screen. Oh, that's good to know. Okay, 15 of you in. Let's have a look. Can you see them now? Ah, what's going on? Good. I'm trying to work out what you can see. So can you see now I've released the answers? You can't see them.
I don't think
It just says waiting for presenter to show the next slide.
Ah, right, okay. Well, I am showing the slide, which it's kind of built so that you can see it in the room, and because I can't share my slides with you without wrecking the sound, basically so the answer here is false, basically. So that seems counterintuitive because there seem to be promises to pay $30,000, and many of you have probably reached the conclusion, or you may have reached the conclusion that Timbertop should be held to that promise to pay the additional $10,000, because you're thinking about cases like Musumeci and Select Move and Williams and Roffey Brothers, or Roffey Brothers and Williams, can't remember which way around it is. But remember, those cases are about exceptions to the consideration rule. So the practical benefit is not consideration. It gives rise potentially, and we'll talk about whether it works in this case or not shortly, but it gives rise to the practical benefit exception. So it is, I can't remember what my next slide is, might have even asked this same question, but there's no doubt that there is consideration for the promise to pay $20,000. But there isn't consideration for a promise to pay $30,000.
So, Kath, the practical benefit isn't present in this case?
Well, we haven't got there yet. I'm sort of preempting as to why people might have thought that there was consideration for the whole $30,000. So if you're thinking, well, this consideration was the promise to build the cubby houses for the first 20, and then there's practical benefit for this 10, so there's consideration. Without actually coming down on whether there's a practical benefit or not yet, I just wanted to point out that practical benefit is different from consideration. It's an exception from that requirement.
Gotcha.
So the next question, the next slide is, did Ace Cubbies provide consideration to Timbertop for the payment of the $10,000? So your options are, yes, Cubby House competed on time. No, it was a promise to perform an existing legal duty. Yes, Timbertop Nurseries promised to pay Ace Cubbies. Or no, the original contract price cannot be altered. And what I'm seeing on the slide here on the results, in fact, let me just share it with you quickly and then go away from it so that we don't lose too much sound. So that's what I'm seeing at the moment. Sorry, I'll stop the share quickly because clearly when I share my screen it impacts sound just way too negatively. So most people are absolutely on the money there. There's a promise to perform an existing legal duty. So there's no consideration for that additional $10,000. That doesn't necessarily mean that they won't be required to pay that extra $10,000. It's just answering the technical question, is there consideration for it? Then if there's no consideration, if you remember my markup map at the beginning, then we ask ourselves, is there an exception that applies? So if there is an exception to the existing legal duty rule, which one do you think it would be? Promise to benefit a third party. Original contract terminated and replaced. Actually, we haven't spoken about that, and we should. A bona fide compromise of a legal claim. Practical benefit or fresh consideration. I've just...
Kath, you've muted yourself.
I didn't mean to. I was trying... Come on. Sorry, didn't mean to mute myself. I'm just trying to see if using a different microphone will help. I'm going to very quickly just show you what the screen looks like. So you should be able to see there. Again, overwhelmingly, most people are saying that it's the practical benefit exception, probably aided by me telling you it was likely to be the practical benefit exception just a couple of minutes ago. A couple of people there are saying is fresh consideration. I'd just like you to think about that. I mean, just in the question beforehand, we had agreed that there was no consideration for the 10,000. So I've got a logic leap with why there would be fresh consideration if there's no consideration. But yeah, I just want to, if you were one of those people, if you want to explain to me your reasoning later, let me see if I can help you work through it bit by bit, because the bona fide compromise of a legal claim, we would need more information in order to see that. So a bona fide compromise is where there's a genuine belief that you can claim more money or that you can reduce a claim in some way. And we don't have that information here at this stage. So what practical benefit was obtained? If we agree that it's a practical benefit, what practical benefit was obtained by Timbertop Nurseries performing an existing legal duty? Have a go at actually giving me an answer. Okay, I'm going to share the screen again and hope the audio is okay. Able to deliver the cubby house in time by not having to get a new contractor. Cubbies would be delivered in time. Extra payment could be received. Might cost more to get someone else to take over at this late stage. More expedient construction. They received the final product and maintained good relationship with the parties that already sold. They were able to meet their contractual obligations. Stop that scrolling. Not having to hire another contractor. Some great answers there. Oh, sorry, did you not actually... You couldn't actually see them. I'm just reading away, looking at the answers. You're not really getting a chance to do that. But yeah, look, there's some really excellent answers. I'm not seeing anything there that would concern me. I can see that you can see what a practical benefit is. the trick to this is understanding that a practical benefit offers an opportunity for an exception to the requirement for consideration. And in Australia, that requirement means that the benefit needs to be adequate as well as sufficient. They're my words, not what the judge says, but if we think about it that way, the benefit needs to be greater than the detriment that would be suffered by the forbearance or the extra payment or whatever it is. Okay.
Kath, can you just say that again? So it's an exception to the requirement to have
Consideration.
Consideration, okay.
So when we look at practical benefit, what has happened is that the practical benefit arises in circumstances where the promisor, the person who's receiving the practical benefit or getting the benefit of the situation, is either giving something up, so agreeing to a lesser rent, or paying an additional amount of money. So they're doing something, and they're then subsequently arguing that there's no consideration for that detriment, that promise that they've made. But rather than consideration, the law is saying you received a practical benefit from doing that. And in Australia, we're saying that the value of that practical benefit is greater to you than the cost of the detriment. So the amount that you agreed to reduce the rent was less than the benefit that you got from having the shopping centre not be dark and empty of shops.
So I could use that to get a rent reduction in the current COVID crisis?
That is a really good question, because the other thing is you don't set out to get a practical benefit. What you are setting out to do is to actually end up with a contract that's going to be enforceable. Now, if we have to rely on going to court and arguing practical benefit, that's going to cost us money and time and uncertainty. You would be better off, as step number one, is there's a COVID crisis going on here. I want to renegotiate our rent. Let's make sure there's fresh consideration of some sort, or that we renew the agreement entirely. We actually officially terminate and start again, because we want it to be... Again, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'm not a barrister. I've been writing agreements. So from cases like this, I learn ways to make sure that my clients don't end up at court dealing with this kind of situation. Because often these remedies are they're our last resorts. So, well, you can't get evicted either. So legislation comes in over the top at the moment too. So, but you would be better off starting again. But of course, to start again, and this is one of the things we haven't spoken about over the course of what we've done today, is because one of the exemptions is, do we just have a whole new agreement? Do we actually terminate our old agreement and replace it with a new agreement? And again, we can do that with consideration, and it might just be for $1. We could have, or you could do it by deed. Remember, we don't need consideration if there's a deed. One of the ways these guys could have saved themselves a whole lot of trouble is Musumeci, for example, could have put forward a deed to vary the lease, change the rent to blah, 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 no consideration. So always we're looking for other ways to achieve the same thing. Okay.
Yeah, I think where I was getting confused on that is the terminology that the practical benefit amounts to good consideration or sufficient consideration. So I think that language is used in a few of those. So the practical benefit is the consideration. So
yeah, technically, I hope that's not in my slides. Because I must admit, early on, I remember when I finished law school, that's how I understood it. Or actually, I think Musumeci might have even been after I finished law school. That's how I understood it anecdotally until I read the cases and the textbook. But the textbook's pretty clear on it, as it falls into the exception category. So, yeah.
It's just in the judgments they go like it was held that it amounted, the practical benefit amounted to sufficient consideration.
So it's used that language, has it?
Yeah, and then even in the Mitsumeshi one, it's similar. It says a practical benefit should only constitute good consideration if the beneficiary's performance is capable of being regarded by the modifying party as worth more than blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So it calls it good consideration.
It does call it good consideration. But it is
a practical benefit,
yeah. It's not consideration, it's a practical benefit. Yeah. So, yeah. Look, at the end of the day, it becomes a matter of semantics anyway. It really does become a matter of semantics. But we look at it in the context of this is an exception from the requirement to have good consideration. We could call it consideration of another type, but I think then we just end up broadening this definition of consideration into all of these extra different things. It's just an exception for the requirement for consideration is if we can demonstrate this practical benefit. But you need to get a court to agree with you as well. So I think it is actually more precise to think about it as an exception.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
And you do have to remember that what you're doing here is you're learning this stuff so you can solve problems. I'm hoping you're learning it so that you can, write awesome contracts one day. And even those of you who are not going to be commercial lawyers will be dealing with contracts all the time. So it's learning from, like I say, it is in part learning how to have a good marriage by talking to a divorced person. By reading these cases, by understanding these things, you can think, well, my options is I can have in the contract, I can be explicit as to what the consideration is. Or if it all goes pear-shaped, I'll go to court and convince someone there's a practical benefit instead. And that's why I think it's good to not call it consideration, because it's something different that you would need to establish with evidence that it happened if you're going to enforce the contract. And it's often the little guy in the contracts here that would be the ones who are needing to prove that later on. The person who does need their rent reduced because of COVID-19, or who's struggling to keep their business afloat and has been, basically bullied into doing stuff at risk of not paying employees on time by somebody because they underquoted at the beginning, who then promised to pay them properly. Okay, next slide. Justice Santow in Musumeci held that the practical benefit rule in Australia should be accepted with 3 modifications. One of those was that a practical benefit should only constitute good consideration if the beneficiary's performance can be regarded as the modifying party as worth more than the remedy against them, such as damages. True, false, the option I'm beyond caring wasn't actually made available to you. So far, everybody who's put something in there has said that that is true. And, except one. And, that one could have been me just a second ago, just moving it along. It is true. Read the judgment. And that's the requirement that we need to think about. We have time